going back to Luke 22 and 30, he says that what? Let's start at 28. Ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations, and I appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Father hath appointed unto me, that ye may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. When you look up this word for table, all right, we're going to sit directly at the table with Yahweh Shai, judging the matters of the whole entire planet Earth. Okay, the word table is trapeza. Trapeza, a table on which food is placed, an eating place. Now we know that we're going to eat and drink with him, but more importantly, this table symbolizes the table in which the priest sat, handling the affairs of the nation of Israel, taking in all of the increase, the goods, the first fruits that would come to the temple would all be given unto the priest. So it says the table in the temple at Jerusalem, on which the consecrated loaves were placed, right? And it says the table or stand of a money changer, where he sits exchanging different kinds of money for a fee and paying back with loans or deposits. Now, when we go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and the 12th verse, now remember, these are the blessings. We got to remember to tap into these blessings. Yeah, we know the curses are from Deuteronomy 28:15 on down, but when you read the blessings, you get insight into what we are getting ready to inherit. Now, one of the things that Yahweh Shai said that we just read is that we're going to sit at his table with him, judging the affairs of the 12 tribes of Israel, setting everything in order, being at the forefront, all right, of establishing forever in paradise. Deuteronomy 28:12, Yahweh shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto thy land in his seasons, and everything is going to flourish, everything is going to be on point, won't be any drought, right? The seasons are going to come in perfection, everything will flourish, no GMOs, right? And to bless all the work of thy hand, and thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. Read that in the M.O.T.B. It says you will lend to many nations, but you will never need to borrow from them. So when you understand the kingdom of heaven and being a priest after the order of Melchizedek, which is Yahweh Shai, we are going to be the bankers of the nation of Israel. We're going to be the bankers of the whole world. But see, we're going to deal in righteousness. And we will be able to lend to heathen. We will be able to deny loans. We'll be at the forefront of how everything flows throughout the whole four corners of the earth. The Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath. See, and this is what's promised unto us under Yahweh Shai's kingdom. Joint heirs of what? Being at the forefront of creation. Being at the forefront of setting everything back in its proper perspective, putting everything where it needs to be. All right, from trees to, everything that you can imagine. And we're going to do this in new bodies.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Makakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles, and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakadash, you know, and so like what we're gonna get into, this morning, this morning news and prophecy, dealing with path to war and the M.O.T.B, because these two prophecies are entangled, because what we're seeing, is the nations begin to fight over this new system, because all these nations agree, okay, with this new system, this technocracy, this digital system. But what we're getting ready to see is these nations fight over the new system. Well, what we're seeing, okay, because there's limited resources, all right, there's limited, energy, you see, and these nations, like I said, you have to remember all these nations have their own, all right, ambition and desire, because all these nations have their oligarchs, their, top government officials and leaders, okay, that have their own ambition under the umbrella of this new world order, okay? So as we get closer to the M.O.T.B, we're going to see the war escalate, and this is the Lord fulfilling his will because the Lord, all right, is getting ready to end the empire of Esau, okay? So as Esau is getting close to trying to crown his enterprise, this war is going to escalate, okay, and destroy everything that Esau Edom is trying to achieve. And this war is going to usher in Yahweh Shai, So we're on that path to Yahweh Shai. When we say path to war in the M.O.T.B, ultimately these two roads lead to Yahweh Shai. The M.O.T.B and the war, where there are two roads that lead to Yahweh Shai, okay, which is the end, okay, of Esau's empire and the authority of these heathens. Now, what we're seeing now is what's going on with this war. We'll touch on the war, then we'll get into the M.O.T.B. So let's go here to Jeremiah, because it's all in prophecy, man. Everything can be explained, through the Holy Scriptures, okay, which are the words of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, all right? And this is the Lord's intention in the earth, and we're seeing the Lord, as Scripture say, he's doing his pleasure in the earth, man, and it's playing out exactly how he said it would. Now, when you go into Jeremiah 50 and 35, all right, let's go here. All right, let's get this. Jeremiah 50 and 35. It says, a sword is upon the Chaldeans. Okay, and this is beginning with the elites. Okay, the elites that run, all right, modern Babylon. All right, Babylon the Great, which is America. Okay, a sword is upon them, which is war. You see, as these elites are used to starting wars to forward their agenda on the global scale, well, this war, all right, is going to work against them. They're going to be able to spin some things off, okay, in this war to accomplish, certain steps within their enterprise. But then this war is going to keep going and work against them, okay? So a sword is upon the Chaldeans because this war is going to destroy everything that the elites have been, building up to this point. This war is going to destroy it, okay, with the nuclear destruction and all right, the return of Yahweh. It said the Lord, and upon the inhabitants of Babylon, and say, you Americans have no idea what your country just embarked on. Okay, you see, you have no idea. Your government, okay, just walked into a nuclear trap that's going to get you Americans nuked. Okay, it says, and upon her princes, her rulers, senators and mayors, governors, okay, all the leadership, and upon her wise men. You see, the men that are supposed to be in the position of decision making. Okay, all this is getting ready to be destroyed, man. Okay, the inhabitants of Babylon is finna feel the wrath of the Most High. Okay, and this what the setup was all about. The Lord set America up for complete failure, man. And he set the elites up for failure, man. And these other heathens, they're used as tools, okay, to destroy. But then they're set up for failure as well for following Esau, man. Okay. Verse 36 said, a sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty man, and they shall be dismayed, man. And American leadership does nothing but lie, man. That's all they do. It's to the point now to they just tell you the same lie every day. No matter what the reality is happening in real time, you get the same lie every day as the American people, man. You see, they just straight face tell you a lie, man, because they know, all right, you people, all right, you're the only thing you're gonna do is maybe a TikTok response, but other than that, they know that you people, all right, are not gonna do anything, man. Okay, they've dumbed you down so much, okay, till they just lie directly in your face about everything, man. I won't be surprised. See, Trump can get on TV now and say the data centers are healthy with a straight face. Okay, the data centers are improving health. Okay, you see, it will be no uproar. A few videos will come out and that's it, man. Okay, once you look at your American government, they do nothing but lie to you people, man. You know, and it says a sword is upon their horses and upon their chariots, man. And this is their military hardware. And we look at what's going on over there in uh in the Gulf, okay, where all these bases are in Western Asia, what they call the Middle East. And you look at what's going on, man. America's infrastructure, their fighter jets, their helicopters, their radars, their military hardware is being destroyed, man. With missiles, man. And we know eventually it's going to go nuclear. But right now, we're seeing a prelude of these prophecies, beginning to break ground. Okay, and these things are happening now on a low level, but they're going to constantly intensify until nuclear, man. It says, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her. Okay, so all these different nations that are here in America. Okay, they swore that nuclear destruction is on the way, and they shall become as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. Okay, so what we're seeing is nothing but bad news. This war is going to bring nothing but bad news for America, man. It's going to start with the American citizens, and it's going to end with the elites, okay, being put into captivity, man. All right, the elites are going to be the spoils of war, and you surviving Edomites and heathens throughout the world are going to be the spoils of war, man. All right, but the elites that started this war, they're going into captivity, man. It says a drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up. And this is all we're hearing about is rivers drying up, lakes drying up, the Hoover Dam, okay, certain water sources that have been around for centuries are drying up, and a lot is due to these data centers that's sucking up all the water, okay, out the ground, okay. But this is all prophecy, man. It says, for it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols, man. And this is a place that's mad upon their idols, man. You look at America, it's heavy what on self-worship, worshiping celebrities, worshiping attention, worshiping, money. Okay, this place is mad upon their idols, man. You see? Worship of the nightlife. You see? This place is mad upon their idols, man. To the point where people are going to go get their body disfigured and mutated, okay, just to imitate, celebrities, and they're mad upon their idols, man. Okay, said therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the island shall dwell there, and the owl shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Yeah, America becoming a desert. Okay, because that's the end game to all this, man. Okay, and we're just following the build up, man, to the Lord. All right, is going to make America into a desert, not inhabited, man. This is what all this war is leading to. Okay, you see, and that's why prophecy gives us the end game. That's why if anyone is talking about anything else outside of America being completely destroyed, at the end of this war, then we know to dismiss it, man. And see, because there's a lot of speculation because we listen to these different analysts, and they speculate this and speculate that. But see, when they speculate, we know what it is, man. Okay, the Lord finna turn America to a desert. Okay, no, America ain't just gonna be, a mid-tier power that exists after this war. No, America is gonna be a desert. Okay, the concept of America is gonna be wiped off the earth. Okay, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why you go in verse 40, as the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities thereof, said the Lord, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. So just as Sodom and Gomorrah doesn't exist as a place to go to, well, America's going to be in the same predicament, man. You see, that's what makes it an everlasting judgment, is because after this destruction, it's never going to be inhabited again, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, that's the everlasting judgment. The fire eventually is going to burn out. The smoke is eventually going to settle. Okay, but it will never be inhabited again, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. That judgment is going to be everlasting, man. You see, it's going to have an everlasting effect. Okay, he said, "Behold, a people shall come from the north, a great nation." Is beginning with Russia. Okay, and many kings, the allies to Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, okay, Pakistan, India, North Korea, okay, and just with them 7 nations alone, okay, that's a crazy powerhouse, man. And what these nations are seeing, oh, America is not ready for this shit, man. You see, China, Russia in the back, North Korea. These nations are looking at this, man, and they're being emboldened, and they're gonna make their move. They're gonna jump in the fray after a while, man, according to prophecy. You see, but they're looking at how America is performing, and hey, they looking like, yeah, we got this nigga here, man. Ain't no doubt about it, you know, because see, the pride of America, has left America very vulnerable, man. Pride has left America extremely vulnerable, man. Okay, and these other nations see it, and the Lord has it played out to where He's forming this alliance against the whore and the small hats, man. Because the Lord is going to cleanse our land. He's going to renovate our land through war. You see, because these small hats, they love to use their air force to do demolition, like what they did in Gaza. That was them really just doing demolition with their air force. Just destroying the infrastructure, just constantly bombing and bombing and bombing. Okay, that was to destroy the infrastructure of Gaza because they have, this ambition to have this smart city right there on, the coast. Okay, they playing within their new world order. They're gonna have this smart city in Gaza. Okay, that's their intent. So they use the pretense of Hamas. Okay, to go in and just, carpet bomb. All right, their whole area. And it was just a demolition. You see, well, the Most High gonna take it a step further. He's gonna do demo on that whole land, and see, it ain't gonna be rubble. You see, the heat that's coming to land of Israel, it's gonna melt everything, man. Okay, it's gonna give us a clean slate to build Israel. Okay, from the ground up, man, beginning with Jerusalem and working our way out. Okay, it says verse 42. It says they shall hold the bow and lance. They are crew, yeah. It means they gonna hold the bow and the lance, which are these nukes. Okay, and they gonna get cruel with them things, man. Okay, the Lord had a spirit on them to have no pity on the American civilization. See, because America doesn't have pity on anyone else's civilization. All right, the American military doesn't mind, bombing civilians. Okay, because American military is nothing but, mercenaries of the elites. Okay, so just as America has not cared about civilians, well, the Lord gonna put the spirit on these other nations not to care about American civilians, man. Okay, and it's gonna be nuclear. You see, and it says, and will not show mercy, Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, every one put in array like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. Okay? So this is the what we're seeing playing out real time. And this is what everything is leading up to, man. So the prophecy is speaking, man. And these things, like I said, there's a sword, all right, upon the Chaldeans, there's a sword upon the inhabitants, there's a sword upon the chariots and horses, man. We're seeing this, man. Okay? We're seeing, all right, American military infrastructure being destroyed, through missiles. We're seeing, all right, American personnel, military personnel being unalive. There's a sword on their ass, man. And eventually the sword is gonna get nuclear and it's coming to the mainland, man. Okay. So the Lord gives us little tidbits, little trailers of what's to come. Okay, within the biggest scope of prophecy, man. You see? So let's go from there. Let's get this first video. Let's get this one. Got quite a few. So let's play this.
The Iranian retaliatory strikes at a time. We're not talking about tiny little tents or flimsy porta cabins. We're talking about substantial structures, satellite images of which have been circulating for years that are built to accommodate entire battalions. Ritter has pointed out, and this is critical, that each one of these shelters, the very same ones that were hit in the Iranian retaliatory strikes, houses at least 300 soldiers. 300 in one shelter alone. Now, do the math with me for a moment, because the Pentagon is hoping you won't. If a single Iranian missile, and we know multiple missiles struck these facilities, if a single one of those bunkers takes a direct hit from a ballistic missile, you are not looking at a handful of casualties. You are looking at catastrophic loss of life on a scale that the Pentagon is desperate to hide from the American public. 300 soldiers in one shelter, and Ritter has suggested that the number of dead could easily exceed 500 when you factor in the multiple strikes across different bases in Jordan and Syria. 500 American service members killed in a single night of Iranian retaliation, and the Pentagon is trying to sell you a story about 2 or 3 dead and a few dozen wounded. This is not incompetence. This is a cover-up of monstrous proportions. Before we dive deeper into this rabbit hole of deception, I need to ask you something. If you are sick of the lies, if you are tired of watching the mainstream media parrot Pentagon talking points while our boys and girls come home in body bags, then hit that like button. Share this video with every single person you know. Drop a comment, even if it is just a dot, or better yet, write something about what you think the real death toll is. The algorithm is designed to silence voices like ours, but when you engage, you fight back against that suppression. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because honest journalism is under attack, and we need every single one of you standing with us. Now, let me tell you what is really going on over there. The Pentagon's entire strategy has been built on a foundation of secrecy, and they have been remarkably consistent in their refusal to tell the American people the truth. Throughout the aggression launched by US President Donald Trump and the occupation's prime minister against Iran, the Pentagon maintained that operational security takes precedence over informing the American public about developments in the conflict, including military casualties. Operational security, that is the buzzword they use to justify keeping you in the dark while your tax dollars are incinerated and your fellow citizens are turned into statistics. And this brings us to...
You write the words. What if you could hear them as a song? Go to suno.com, switch to custom mode, and paste in your lyrics. Then describe the sound. I'll go with soulful R&B ballad.
The footage, the shocking footage from Iran that is now circulating and shattering the Pentagon's carefully constructed narrative. Chinese satellites, and this is a development that has Washington absolutely apoplectic. Chinese satellites are now providing clear, unambiguous imagery of what actually happened on the ground. The Financial Times reported that Iran secretly acquired a Chinese-built satellite, the TEE-01B, in late 2024, which allowed it to target U.S. military bases across the Middle East. The satellite, built and launched by the Chinese company Earth Co., is capable of capturing imagery at roughly half-meter resolution, allowing analysts to identify aircraft and monitor activity at military bases. This is not some grainy, black and white Cold War spy photo. This is high-resolution, real-time intelligence that exposes every lie the Pentagon has told. Indian space experts independently verified that a Chinese Earth observation satellite made repeated daylight passes over key U.S. military bases in West Asia ahead of the March 2026 strikes by Iran. The Chinese commercial satellite analysis company Mizar Vision has also released satellite images showing U.S. military buildup in Qatar, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. The days of the United States controlling the narrative through information dominance are over. The world can see what is happening, and what the world is seeing is a catastrophe that the Pentagon is trying desperately to hide.
So, China, is allowing Iran access to those high-tech satellites. Okay, so it's like Iran is going into this war with new eyes. They can see everything, you know. American, then remember, uh, these iPhones that American troops are issued. Okay, well, guess what? Iran has been able to hack those iPhones, so they can track, okay, each troop by their iPhone, and they know, all right, what they know what American, all right, is housing drones at, where they're housing their fighter jets at. Okay, everything is out there. America is naked over there, basically, man. Okay, so the Lord, has caused this alliance, between Iran and China. So you have Iran's stockpile of missiles with with China's, intelligence and eyes, also with Russia helping too, but mainly, with China's satellite, which are like new eyes. Okay, so America is naked. That's why you're just hearing these casualties and these injuries go up every day. Okay, because they're just sitting ducks. Okay, and as what the scriptures say, a sword shall be upon Babylon, man. You know, so we're seeing the beginning of that now. The ultimate, that scripture is speaking about the missile, the nuclear missile is going to come to the mainland. Okay, but what we're seeing is American military is starting to be hunted down. Now let's go from there. Got a few more videos to go into, but yeah, America's not going to tell you, all right, the true casualties. Okay, the air defense system, the air defense is done. Those bases, okay, are defenseless because the air defense is done because they can't produce enough, all right, of those Patriot 3 projectiles. They can keep up, okay, with all those drones and ballistic missiles that Iran has been stockpiling for decades. You see, while America has been at war with the earth, okay, after World War II, Americans always been on some type of, been involved in some type of war, either directly or indirectly, so America has been arming all these different proxies. They've been arming Ukraine since 2020, okay? And then they've been arming, the small hats, and now they're in the war themselves. You see? So America has just been running through stockpiles, man, to they're low. Okay? So now it just opened up over there to where Iran can get everything that they want. They can hit everything that they want with no resistance, man. Because they're only sending a few. Remember, Iran could go way more crazy than what they're going right now. This is still light work. They sending small strike packages that they send, but they're getting direct hits with 1 or 2 of these missiles and it's being devastated. Okay? Remember, Iran can send 300 missiles to one of these bases. Okay? And it ain't gonna be no injury. It's just gonna be all casualties. If they wanted to escalate to that point, but they're just leaving room on the escalation ladder, because they're planning for a long war. Okay, so when we hearing about 1 or 2 missiles hitting on these bases, remember Iran can do 300 to 400, if they wanted to. Okay, but let's play this right quick.
The cost of America's war with Iran is mounting. America is paying in blood and treasure. New figures now suggest that more than 500 U.S. service members have been wounded in the ongoing Iran conflict. The revelation paints a far grimmer picture of the battlefield than previously known, with the casualty count now surpassing the Pentagon's publicly available tally. According to a U.S. official who spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity, well over 500 American troops have now been wounded in the Iran war. That figure is significantly higher than the Pentagon's Defense Casualty Analysis System, which currently lists 482 wounded personnel. The official said the discrepancy stems from delays in reporting injuries through the system, not from any attempt to conceal casualties. The numbers are climbing at an alarming pace. Since July 7th alone, another 100 U.S. service members have been wounded, according to Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell. The surge in casualties underscores the intensity of fighting as military operations continue across the region. But the human cost doesn't end with the wounded. The number of American troops killed is also rising. Since the United States and Israel launched their opening strikes on February 28th, in which Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed, 18 U.S. service members have lost their lives. 3 of those deaths came within the past week alone. 2 American service members were killed after an Iranian ballistic missile and drone attack on Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan on July 17th, according to the Pentagon. Just 2 days later, another U.S. soldier was killed during the controlled detonation of an Iranian drone. Of the 18 American deaths, 10 have been classified as hostile action fatalities, meaning they resulted directly from combat or terrorist activity. The casualties stretch across the Middle East. In March, 6 American soldiers were killed in a drone strike in Kuwait. Another service member was killed after Iran targeted a U.S. military base in Saudi Arabia. But not every death came under enemy fire. A U.S. refueling aircraft crashed, killing all 6 crew members on board. Earlier this month, a U.S. helicopter pilot also died in a crash in the Arabian Sea. While those incidents are not classified as hostile action deaths, they add to the mounting human toll of a conflict that continues to widen. The last time the United States lost this many troops in hostile action in a single year was August 2021, when 13 American service members were killed in the Kabul airport bombing.
Yeah, man. And you can get used to this scene. Okay? As this war goes on, you can get used to this scene, man. People getting carried back. Okay, and it's only going to increase. And it's going to get worse, man. Like I say, this is still, Iran is still going light. Okay, they've been consistent, but it's still light. You know, so the way that America decides to, if America decides to escalate, you're going to see Iran escalate. Okay, and these casualties are going to start to go up. Okay, but let's play some more.
During the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has pushed back against reports questioning its casualty reporting. Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell responded to a New York Times report alleging the Defense Department was undercounting military injuries sustained during the Iran war. In a lengthy post on X, Parnell dismissed the report as part of a malicious campaign, insisting that casualty data is publicly available and updated regularly through the Defense Casualty Analysis System. In a separate post, Parnell said that while nearly 100 service members have sustained injuries since July 7th, 96% have already returned to duty, suggesting that many of the wounds were not severe enough to prevent soldiers from resuming operations. But even as the Pentagon defends its casualty figures, the war shows no sign of slowing down. The United States has continued to intensify its military campaign. The U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, announced that it had completed its 11th consecutive night of strikes against Iran. According to CENTCOM, U.S. forces targeted Iranian military operations centers, maritime capabilities, aircraft hangars, drone storage facilities, and military logistics infrastructure in an effort to further degrade Tehran's ability to threaten commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM also claimed that Iran has attacked more than 30 commercial vessels transiting the strategic waterway over the past 3 months. As casualties mount on both sides, and the strikes continue night after night, the question is no longer whether the conflict is escalating, but how much deadlier it is prepared to become.
Yep, and we know they're gonna go all the way. Okay, it's gonna go all the way to nuclear. Okay, and America's gonna be turned to a desert. Now, when you go here, because now, all right, let's go here with because people are starting to say now, it's like, well, damn, if they destroy, because see, for long as what Trump been saying, we destroyed their Air Force, we destroyed their military, we destroyed all their missiles. So people are starting to ask the question, well, damn, how they still fight? You know, how the hell they catching all these bodies if if we destroyed everything, in March and April, how are they able to continue to wage war and retaliate night after night? You see? So let's play a little bit of this.
Now is an all-out war that would include pickaxe. Sources say Israel would come in to help deliver the final blow. The Israelis are already on.
And where are the small hats? Okay? Where the hell is these tough-ass small hats, man? And they've been fighting this day 12. Okay? And they getting busy. You see? Where are these tough-ass small hats, man? Nowhere to be found. Okay?
High alert and preparing to go full scale.
Lawmakers also pressing Hegseth on reports that the war has further depleted America's stockpile of weapons, including interceptors used to shoot down Iranian missiles and drones. Senators also asking how Iran can continue to target U.S. bases and Gulf allies, despite President Trump's claims that the regime's military capabilities have been wiped out.
The amount of damage that we've done to them over the course of these series of operations has put them in the worst place they've ever been.
How have Iranian officials been responding to these nightly U.S. airstrikes now in their 11th night?
This is actually not for the first time, but the message that we can hear from the political establishment all in all is that of resilience and defiance. And every time an attack takes place, Iranians are coming out to say that there are going to be retaliations, there are going to be repercussions, and they are going to continue to strike back. And the other day, we have been hearing from some military sources saying that in case of the continuation of these attacks, Iran's approach is going to shift from actually defensive approach to a rather offensive approach, running the risk of what Iranian sources and Iranian officials are calling dragging the war beyond the region, beyond what the advisor to the supreme leader called political boundaries. And on that, they said that if that happens, there are going to be potentialities for full-fledged, all-out war scenarios.
They want to desperately meet, and until they're ready to meet in a meaningful way, we have no interest. Honestly, they haven't seen anything yet. We've been nice.
Secretary Hegseth's hearing appearance comes amid reporting that the Pentagon has been slow to discuss injuries to troops. In a post on X, the Pentagon's top spokesperson, Sean Parnell, said while nearly 100 service members have been injured since July 7th, 96% have returned duty. The Defense Casualty Analysis System has become the primary official source for the number of U.S. casualties in the conflict. A CNN review appears to show significant delays in updates. Officials have said the delay is intended to protect service members.
This is a frightening situation, and yeah, they have not been telling us what's been happening in terms of lost equipment, in terms of the cost of the war, and certainly in terms of the service members who have been wounded.
How about these people? They're in this because of nuclear weapons, and they're trying to possibly reconstitute.
Yeah, a coward. Your commander-in-chief. This nigga dodged war 5 times. Okay, 4 times for he what was it? He was in school. He was in college. Okay, and then when he was out of college, he had a medical exemption because he's had what they call bone spurs in his feet. Okay, his father dodged the draft, World War II. His grandfather dodged the draft, and this is the nigga that's conducting war. This is the nigga that's commander in chief, man. Straight coward, man. Okay, third generation coward is you people's commander in chief. Okay, and that's what these Edomites, they start these wars that they don't have to participate in. It's easy to start a war that you don't have to participate in, man. Okay, let's play this some more.
We'll hit that site. Any site where they're even thinking about nuclear, we'll be hitting it very, very powerfully.
Pickaxe Mountains in the crosshairs. The Israelis are leaking to the media that the Iranians moved centrifuges under the mountain after Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their 3 main sites, AKA it's their little plan B, like 3-card Monty, if they ever get their hands on more uranium.
Do you believe that Iran has moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain? And when you say we're not done yet, what is left to finish?
Well, I think that they may have. We don't have it on record. All we do is read the fake news. You know, we see the news is so wrong so many times. So, you know, maybe this one they have right, but it's okay. It doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. You're talking about the centrifuges. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. They don't have. We follow the material. That's where the action is, and we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon. And there's not a thing they can do about it. You know, normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon, and very heavily.
Does that mean then that you don't see a way out of this war anytime soon?
I think for the sustained operations, it depends on how much impact really goes to Iran. At the same time, the economic impact is even worse. They don't have the ability to rebuild, you know, half the systems or half the locations that have been hit. Of course, we always have to defend ourselves and the host nations there. But I don't see anything in the short term. I think that a little bit longer, the economic strain is going to be even worse because it affects everybody. Whereas right now, the people suffer and the government IRGC will benefit for whatever's available.
Glenn, President Trump has repeatedly said that Iran has been just completely destroyed militarily, but they keep finding more drones and missiles. Where does the truth lie there?
Yeah, so it's the components of like the active Air Force as far as being able to put air assets in the air. They're gone. The Navy has been sunk, but there's those small little boats that still exist. So the structure of an entire Navy and so forth. So that's what
nigga lying. Okay? Because Iran never had a significant Air Force. Okay? Then America, when you go into Iran, how it's structured off missiles and drones. Okay, that's their military. They got ground troops, you know, that's waiting on this this invasion, okay, of America. They got hella ground troops, okay. But Iran's military is based on drones and missiles, and their factories where they make the missiles are underground. Their factories where they make the drones are underground, and America can't get to it. Okay, so when America is saying that we destroyed this and destroyed this, nigga just lying. Because even the reporter like, well, damn, they keep finding drones and missiles to strike back with. Okay, so this nigga like, well, we destroyed, you know, their aircraft. You know, the aircrafts of their Air Force. Well, they don't have a lot of aircrafts. They didn't invest in aircrafts, man, because they're not trying to match America fighter jet for fighter jet. Okay, no, we're gonna hit your fighter jet with this missile and with this drone. Okay, because we got a whole factory that churns these out. And plus, like I say, with Chinese satellites, now they can pick up everything. Like Iran, the first country to hit an F-35. The F-35 has never been picked up on radar, and they took an F-35 out. Okay, so you listen to Western media, and they're constantly telling you that they don't have a military anymore. But then you look at the reality on the ground, it's like shit. They got something. Okay, so let's play a little more of this. I want to play one main part. Well, I'm gonna pass this. This nigga just finna lie. But let's go here, because you're gonna have this one of these senators gonna be on Pete Hegseth ass, boy. God damn. Here we go. Yeah, let's play this.
They've been able to reconstitute some of their systems, so that's where we see it.
Your characterization of this incredible effort as a failure is reckless. And I think it's irresponsible. And I think it smears the sacrifice of the troops that are out there making on behalf of the American people to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
And see what this nigga doing. They're coming to the Senate to beg for some more money. They're begging for another 88 billion because they're running through all this money. Okay, they getting their ass beat to sleep and they're running through all this money. They're coming to the Senate begging for money. So now the senator like, nigga, what are we paying for? Nigga, we're not getting no results. We're constantly losing aircrafts. We're losing billion-dollar radars. The service members are dying. The bases are becoming uninhabitable. Nigga, what are we paying for? You see? So you're going to see a little back and forth between this maniac, all right, Pete Hegseth, okay, this neo-Nazi, okay, cokehead, you know, which is the Secretary of Defense, or they call Secretary of War now, okay? And you Americans have a hell of a lineup when it comes to your leaders, man. Between this guy, Trump, Vance, okay, Rubio, okay, and they're all cowards, you see? And this guy, Stephen Miller, okay, you have a hell of a lineup, all right, as your leadership, man, okay? So let's play this some more, man. Let's play a little bit, let's take it back.
And I think it's irresponsible. And I think it smears the sacrifice of the troops that are out there making on behalf of the American people to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Shame on you and others who call this a quagmire and a failure, and then you want to turn around and say you support the warfighter. Either you do or you don't.
Is the nuclear material still there,
I can
sir?
get you a ticket out to CENTCOM and talk to what those Americans are doing and how committed they are to this effort and how they want to ensure that Iran never threatens their families with a nuclear weapon. That's the kind of intensity that our warfighters have about making sure that Iran isn't capable of doing that.
Secretary Hegseth, if you listen to my comments, you would have heard me say how amazing our warfighters are.
I heard failure. The word heard. I heard exactly.
I will tell you how I use the word failure, because I use the word failure to their leaders. You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, not the men and women who hold up their honor with distinction. But if there's a lack of a winning strategy, they're in harm's way. Their leaders have failed them. And that's what's happening. We have political leadership. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership. When will you show leadership? When will you show leadership?
You show some leadership and stand up to your fellow Democrats who won't fund the troops, who stand and play partisan politics while you don't give us the money. You want to stand up here and talk about the troops? You won't show any political courage to actually fund our department because you have Trump derangement syndrome and can't actually commit to anything meaningful. So I put this on you, Senator.
Secretary Hegseth, you have trillions, you have over $1 trillion. You're asking for $1.5 trillion. It's not a question of money. It's a question of leadership and understanding what it takes to actually win.
Political cowardice of Democrats who won't fund the troops.
Iran's interior minister sitting.
A child. All right. A child, man. Okay. Do you see, you have children leading you, man? Like we always get into, what's that, Ecclesiastes, all right, 10 and 16 Bible shot. All right. When that senator told into his ass, man, he said, look, I ain't talking about the troops. I'm talking about their leadership, nigga. You. You see? Y'all ain't got no strategy, man, because they went over there with the whole strategy. We finna topple the regime. We finna do what we did in Venezuela. We finna do that in Iran. That shit didn't work, and it's been a shit show from there. Okay? It's been downhill from there. You see, they went in there with plan A. We gonna take out the regime, and it's gonna, government is gonna topple on itself, and the exact opposite happened. Okay, now all they did was activate that wild boar in prophecy, man, and they've been on the back foot since then. Okay, and how you know? Where the small hats at? Okay, the small hats was at the front line saying, "Look, we're gonna do this to Iran," and them niggas are nowhere. Okay. And you see America, all right, you see that now they're trying to use this whole thing that now they out of money. You got $1 trillion budget, but now you out of money. Showing what that, hey, matter of fact, if a brother can get that too, Psalms 33 verses, let's see, let's start it. Okay. But this is your leaders. These are your American leaders, a child. This nigga talking about we ain't have enough money. Nigga, you got a quadrillion-dollar military. You've been spending $800+ billion for the last 7-8 years. Nigga, you should be able to win without spending another dollar. Okay? Now he's saying it's because the Democrats won't give him no more money. Nigga, please. You trash. You went over there and you underperformed. Okay? And nigga, you are trash, all right, as a leader. And that's what old boy was telling him. Nigga, you the problem. Okay? So yeah, let's get that in Psalms 33. Okay. I want to start at brother 33 and yeah, 33 verses 16 and 17. Yeah, Psalm 33, 16 and 17. But yeah, let's hear this again, man. You know, he called that nigga out with his Senator Gary Peters of Michigan. Got there. He's sick of them niggas, man. You know, because it just ever since February 28, they did their strike. It's been belt to ass, man. All right. Then them niggas took a time out, you know, the peace treaty, and they went back to war some more. And it's the same thing. They just continue the same belt to ass, man. BTA all over again. You see, they just hit play on the same beating they was taking the first 40 days, man. You know, so now they come to the Senate begging for money. Okay. And nigga like, nah, nigga, y'all got $1 trillion budget, man. You see?
It smears the sacrifice of the troops that are out there making on behalf of the American people to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Shame on you and others who call this a quagmire and a failure, and then you want to turn around and say you support the warfighter. Either you do or you don't.
Is the nuclear material still there,
I can
sir?
get you a ticket out to CENTCOM and talk to what those Americans are doing, and how committed they are to this effort, and how they want to ensure that Iran never threatens their families with a nuclear weapon. That's the kind of intensity that our warfighters have about making sure that Iran isn't capable of doing that.
Secretary Hegseth, if you listen to my comments, you would have heard me say how amazing our warfighters are.
I heard failure. The word heard. I heard exactly.
I will tell you how I use the word failure, because I use the word failure to their leaders. You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, not the men and women who hold up their honor with distinction. But if there's a lack of a winning strategy, they're in harm's way. Their leaders have failed them. And that's what's happening. We have political leadership. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership. When will you show leadership? When will you show leadership?
Why don't you show some leadership and stand up to your fellow Democrats who won't fund the troops, who stand and play partisan politics while you don't give us the money? You want to stand up here and talk about the troops? You won't show any political courage to actually fund our department because you have Trump derangement syndrome and can't actually commit to anything meaningful. So I put this on you, Senator.
Secretary Hegseth, you have trillions. You have over $1 trillion. You're asking for $1.5 trillion. It's not a question of money. It's a question of leadership and understanding what it takes to actually win.
Political cowardice of Democrats who won't fund the troops.
Iran's
a clown, okay, a child. So let's go here. Let's get a few precepts. I'm gonna go ahead and segue to this last video. Okay, a child. He responds like a child. Trump talks like a child. You know, we'll be hitting them really hard tomorrow. The next day, we'll be hitting them really hard. Something real big. You might hear the boom from America. You know, like a damn child, man. Like a kindergarten. Trump talk like a kindergarten. And this nigga Pete Hegseth, he whine and complain like a damn child, man. You see? And this is who's at the forefront. And the Lord did this to set you Edomites up for failure, man. Okay, because even the elites, all right, which we know they're in the background, and they run the show. But see, they depend on these certain leaders, all right, to execute, to come up with it. Because at least they're not coming up with a strategy how to win a war. They don't know how to do that. They're not generals. They're not military men. They're cowards. They never seen the battlefield. Okay, so they don't know how war works. They just know how the money works. Okay, so they need their underlings to be able to execute within their office, man. Okay, but you look at, all right, the American lineup, man, and it's trash, man. Okay, from the president to the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State. Okay, but let's pull this up, then we'll get some of the precepts. So yeah, we'll get into this one. All right, going to the M.O.T.B aspect of it. So let's go. This the brother called Hopeful 144 said Mark 3:25 says, and if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And the house of Esau is getting ready to fall. Okay, the house is getting ready to fall, man. You see, because things are starting to backfire. And one thing about Esau, nobody amongst Esau wants to take the blame for anything. They gonna argue before they have any accountability. Okay, so you best believe, man, there's actual divisions from the elites all the way down to the politicians. Which we know that ultimately they all work for this one agenda. But see, when things start to not go according to plan, somebody gotta go under the bus, man. Okay, and that's where you're gonna see the pointing fingers, okay, and more division amongst these devils, man. Because the Lord is setting Esau up to fall. Okay, so all these things we're gonna see these fractures happen amongst Esau. This the brother Tyler one hopeful elect. Ecclesiastes 10:16. Woe to thee, O land, and that land is America. Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child and thy princes eat in the morning. Okay, so we're seeing, all right, that you have a childish king, beginning with Trump, which he's just a puppet of the elites. Okay, but even going to the elites, okay, they have a childlike mentality, man. Okay, to think that they're going to be the Most High through technology, that's a fantasy. You see, children try to execute fantasies, man. Why children play dress up. They pretend to be these characters, and well, that's the elites. They're children. They're men dressing up and pretending to be the Most High. Okay, and then you have these childish leaders that they put in front of you. Okay, which is completely running the nation to the ground. Okay, now let's go here, because it says woe to the old land, which is destruction, because these childish leaders are going to get you nuked. Okay, these childish leaders that you have in America, all right, you niggas went and bought all this MAGA hats and outfits, and you went to all these rallies, okay, and you voted, okay, for your own destruction, man. You see, it's a brother, my GMS all in 144. It said, there is no king saved by the multitude of the host. A mighty man is not delivered by much strength. Okay, so you see America has all this military hardware. They have the biggest military budget on the earth, and they can't get it done because why? Prophecy. Okay, the Lord is getting ready to what? Destroy America, nigga. America, you don't need to conquer nothing else. Okay, you don't reach the end of your road. Venezuela was your last highlight. Okay, now it's finna get downhill from there. It's going downhill from there. Venezuela was your last, little fast break dump. Okay, now the Most High putting pressure on you through these other nations, man. It's only going to get worse. Okay, it says, and horse is a vain thing for safety, neither shall he deliver any by his great strength. And right now, all right, they're horses, these fighter jets, man. You see, in America, They're used to, like I say, having this overwhelming advantage with their Air Force, man. But with Iran, they can't do that, okay? Because they can't get air superiority, which means they can't freely fly over Iran, okay? You see, because Iran has a missile defense system that's bringing down those fighter jets, man. You see, so now, their go-to is not working. You see, so let's go here. Let's deal with the M.O.T.B aspect of it. So let's play this real quick.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. Today, I have a very special guest for all of us, including myself, Miss Catherine Austin Fitz. It is truly an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today. For many years, I've admired and followed your work very closely, the Solari Report. You've really inspired us to ask the right questions and break many stories that connect critical dots. So I'm just so thrilled to have you on, and thank you just for all your hard work, your integrity, and the difference you're making in this world.
Well, thank you for those very kind words. I appreciate it.
Catherine, we have a lot to talk about, and I have so many questions for you. I have to begin maybe with some of your most recent discussions. You have been outlining this fast approach to digital control grids, and this is built around programmable money, digital IDs, AI surveillance, and tokenized systems. I know it's a impactful question, but with institutional adoption now accelerating and the legislation around all of this, the digital rails is accelerating, how close do you see us to this digital grid becoming fully operational?
So that's an excellent question, and I don't know the answer, but certainly if you look at how they're moving, so there are three three legs to the stool of digital control. One is the digital ID. One is the automatic third lock. Sometimes I refer to it as programmable money. And then the third is the hardware and software infrastructure. The data centers and AI, they're building that very quickly. They're pushing for digital IDs around the world very quickly. And of course, with the Clarity Act and Genius Act in the United States and efforts around the world, they're clearly trying to get that automated third lock in place with programmable money. How soon you can get this all working? I'm watching automated software make a mess in many different industries across the board, especially if you're a customer. And what I see coming together is got to be one of the biggest potential messes we've ever seen. I don't know if you've ever seen anything automated smoothly, but I never have. And so I don't know how they're moving very, very quickly. So let me just talk about the automated third lock on the money. I've been focused at Solari on putting up guardrails on the Genius Act stablecoins. As we've been doing that, what we have learned is that you have the banks now saying they're going to move bank deposits onto distributed ledger. And DTC already this coming month in July is going to have a pilot to begin to move $114 trillion of stocks and bonds on distributed ledgers. So in fact, whereas we were focused on getting the guardrails up on the Genius Act, now we're faced with getting guardrails up on potentially all bank deposits and all stocks and bonds. And that's before we even discuss real estate. So this, they're clearly moving very fast. Now, how fast can they move from pilot to, the financial system? Think of it this way. Over here, you have hundreds of trillions of dollars of financial assets, bank deposits, stocks and bonds, currency. And now you're going to try and move it all into a distributed ledger. And that means you require explosive data center capacity. You require explosive amounts of AI, and you're going to affect enormous changes in how the financial markets operate, who they operate with, how the whole thing works. I've never seen a bigger change happen, let alone in a few years.
So she's speaking about the transition. She's seeing the transition. I say she's, was close to the bankers, in the early 90s. So she's seen a lot of, change. I think she stopped working in the 99 around that time, you know. But yeah, she's seeing how fast they're moving, you know, to get this thing up and running, from pilot mode to operational. Okay. So these devils are pushing to make this thing operational, man. Easy moving hundreds of trillions, into um, what you call the distributed ledgers, which ultimately is the direct, transaction. But what they want to do with these direct transactions in this new system is create what she talks about is a third, all right, a third pillar to where it's going to be AI, okay, that's going to be governing these transactions, because the money is going to be programmable, and if you try to make a transaction that's, being restricted, well, AI is going to pick it up and block it. Okay. It'll no more be, transaction between two parties. It'll be a third party. And that's what AI is going to come in with the control system. Okay. And that's what they're transitioning to. Okay. To where AI will be able to have the ability to govern all transactions. Okay. Based on the programming of the credits that's going to be distributed to each person. Okay. And so you have the flock cameras, which the flock cameras are going to monitor your, your movements. Okay. Even your facial expressions, your reactions, and it's, it's tacky, man. When you look at it, it's like, what's the point of all this, man? For you to try to be the Most High in a very tacky fashion, man. Okay. But I want to jump here, and she's going to speak about what we're seeing now. So let's think about right here.
Allocation of capital. So think of the planet as a house, and you have the assets, but then you have the banking system, that's the transactions, then you have the insurance system. The insurance system is what makes sure the equity has value and is risk managed, and then you have the equity owners. And to me, in the financial system, you have the central bank sort of running the train tracks, and that works up into the people who own the central banks and control the central banks. And that's really intergenerational pools of family capital. And those intergenerational pools have managers and family members who make decisions and collaborate and coordinate. It's much more organic than people think.
You've mentioned about Iran as one of the most critical countries right now for the global control agenda because it represents a major leakage. Can you please expand on that and maybe explain why Iran actually holds such a strategic importance in this conversation?
So part of it is, part is the competition between China and the United States. So Iran is sort of pivoted in the middle because they're critical to a low cost of energy capital for China. So a major exporter to China. But Iran has stayed outside the system, the central banking system, and their central bank is essentially not owned or controlled by the people who control or influence control in many of the Western central banks. So I saw Iran's central bank was, I would say, the most important outlier when you look at the countries that were not in the sort of on board for the BIS model. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason it was the most important is the Iranians, you have a large population, they have very high IQs, a 5,000-year tradition, which gives them, a lot of cultural power. They're very good at technology, but they have incredible resources, particularly with oil and gas. So if you look at their demographics and their resources, that is the most powerful country within the group that sort of wasn't in the model. And I think one of the biggest questions I have about the memorandum of understanding is they want to bring Iran into the model. We're watching statements that say we're going to make major investments in Iran. To what extent is that investment going to build an infrastructure that is much more in the model? I don't know.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, man. So, dealing with Iran, Iran, has been on the outside of global markets, and and the Lord allowed Iran to build itself up, without having to go through the global market. Okay. And as they've done that, they've created independence outside of the market, which enables them to wage war without having to worry about the elites cutting them off from funding. You see, because that's how the elites control war. Like I said, the elites are not generals. They don't strategize, all right, actual war, but they able to manipulate wars by cutting off one side from funds. Okay, but what you have, the Lord has, Russia, which has been on the outside, of the market, lately, especially with all these sanctions, and they've had to come up with economy outside, okay, of the Western markets and survive. Now they participate in Western markets, but they also know how to survive without them, okay, because of all these sanctions. You see, and even with the USSR, as the USSR, they operate outside of, the Western economy. You see, which created what resilience to be able to function outside of it. You see, now China, they was built up outside of the Western economy. I mean, that was built up within the Western economy. It was the Western economy that built China up. You see, but what we're seeing from China, they've teamed up now with these nations that can operate outside of the Western economy, which is Iran and Russia. So now they can play both sides. Okay. And basically, what we're seeing is China is starting to sway towards Russia and Iran. Okay. Why? Because the kings of the East of prophecy, they are part of those nations. Okay. That's gonna play a part in destroying America, man, which is the headquarters of the West. Okay. Because they all agree with the digital system. Russia, China, and Iran, they all have, digital IDs within their society, so they're compatible with the technocracy. Okay. But what she's finna get into, right, is that if there's a scuffle to who's going to control what in this new system, So um let's play a little more.
Interesting. So maybe we could say it like Iran is challenging the New World Order. Would you see it that way?
So up and down. So at the G20 meeting in 2024, you had all the G20 countries pledge allegiance to the BIS model of digital IDs and CBDCs. Everybody. So the multipolar world order, along with the G7, was totally on board for the whole control grid. But there is enormous battle about who controls what aspects, right? So who gets what data, who controls what aspects, who makes money implementing that, and is my digital control grid in China controlled in the city of London or controlled, in Beijing? So even though everybody's on board for centralized digital control, who's going to be at the top and who's going to be the middle management and who makes money? It's totally open to competition and debate. And that's what we're seeing. And I think Iran was clearly looking to have some level of independence.
When I look at what the BRICS nations.
Yeah, so all these nations, okay, I say are on par with this technocracy. Okay. But you got certain nations, they want a level of power in this technocracy, man. You see, they don't want to go in as a mid-tier power. They want to be a top power. Iran wants to be a top power in this thing. Okay. So this is what we're seeing the scuffle. And, there's power struggles, between the superpowers, what's going to be at the forefront, what regime is going to be at the forefront of this new world order. Okay. So if they're rolling this thing out, we're seeing the war escalate because they
are doing,
like I said, they go together, so they get closer to rolling this thing out. The fighting is going to escalate, and that's how the Lord got this thing mapped out beautifully, man. And both roads are leading to Yahushua. The M.O.T.B rolling out, the New World Order, and this war. Okay, they all lead to Yahushua coming. Okay, and establishing order on the earth through power, man, through true power. Okay.
versus the Western alliances. I can't tell whether this is controlled opposition or not. Do you mind giving me your feedback on that? What do you think?
So I think there is, I don't see the BRIC nations as being an alternative. They are an alternative in the sense that they don't want a global unipolar model.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're in a global unipolar model, then the tithe that the unipolar empire extracts from your trading through the dollar system is too high, right? Mm-hmm. So what you want is the ability to transact in a way that the empire can't get your data and they can't extract the subsidy that comes off the dollar privilege. Okay. So when I bought this watch in Hong Kong,
which I put the link in there. She's gonna, just keep going into it. But let's go here real quick. Pretty good watch, about an hour interview. But yeah. So what we're seeing, amongst these nations, okay, is they're fighting over who's going to control what. Who's going to control what region. That's why you see, these nations staking claim. All right, like with Russia fighting in Ukraine, where Russia's already taking territory in Ukraine. Okay. And they say, look, this is our territory now, because most of the resources in Ukraine are in eastern Ukraine, which is the parts that Russia has already taken. Okay. So they're like, look, this is our new border now, going into this new world order. Okay. Iran, which is Strait of Hormuz, like, well, this is our strait now. We run this now. Okay. Going into this new world order. You see, because of all the energy that comes out of it. You see? So there's an actual squabble for resources and land and who can control what going into this thing, and it's going to get out of hand. Okay? And ultimately, all right, when you go into Psalms 2 and 1, it says, why are the nations so angry? Why do they waste their time with futile plans? Because everything that these nations are doing is irrelevant. Okay? Because it's leading to Yahushua coming. Okay? And destroying all the militaries of the earth. You see? So these nations are fighting for power, doing resource grabs and land grabs. Okay, it's going to be all for nothing, as they have their mind, they have certain ambition, okay, on how, they want to establish themselves in the New World Order. Well, it's all for nothing, okay? It said the kings of the earth prepare for battle. The rulers plot together against the Lord, Yahweh by Shemal Shah, and against his anointed one. Okay, because they're trying to undermine the kingdom that Yahushua is getting ready to bring to the earth. They're trying to set up a technocracy before the return of Yahushua. You see, here it is. The next kingdom that's promised in the scripture is the kingdom of Yahushua, man. Okay, which is the kingdom of the nation of Israel. You see, but they're trying to undermine that, and then they follow Esau into thinking that they can establish something, okay, that's gonna that's going to blot out, okay, that's going to hinder Yahushua from coming to set up his kingdom, man. Okay, it said, let us break their chains, they cry, and free ourselves from slavery to the Most High. Okay, so just as Esau convinced, just as the serpent convinced Eve, that she was in bondage by, all right, being in order to Adam. Adam being in order to the Most High. Esau has convinced the nations in this time that, being under the order of the Most High is bondage, is slavery. Okay, but through technology, all right, through witchcraft, through data, we can free ourselves from slavery to the Most High, and we can set up something that gives us complete control. Okay, and he's convinced these nations, to follow him, man. And they're fighting on the way to it, but he's convinced them to follow them, man. Okay, he convinced them to follow him. You see, verse 4 says, "But the one who rules in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them." Okay, because this is a joke to the Most High, what they're trying to do. Okay, and you look at, like saying, and as we look at it, it should be a joke to us how Esau is trying to be the Most High through technology, man. Okay, like he's really trying to pull this off, as if the Most High is going to sit back, okay, and let this man just have his way with this technocracy, man. Nah, man. Okay, it said, verse 5 said, "Then in anger he rebukes them, terrifying them with his fierce fury," and that's going to be allowing this war to go nuclear, and then ultimately sending Yahweh back. Okay, that's going to be the Lord speaking in his wrath to Esau and these nations, man. For trying to pull this off. It said, "For the Lord declares, I have placed my chosen king on the throne in Jerusalem, on my holy mountain," man. So Yahweh Shai is going to be established as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, man. When the Lord uses Yahweh Shai to speak in his fury, okay, it's going to end up with Yahweh Shai on the throne of David in the planet Earth, man. Okay, with a remnant of Israel delivered, okay, beginning with the first fruits to rule with him forever in righteousness, man. And all these heathens going into captivity, man. Okay, and it's a punishment for them being in cahoots with the devil. Okay, so yeah, we'll leave it there. Let's get this great gate 144K, Job 14:5 says, "Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months, all right, are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass," man. All right. So Esau is limited. The Lord showing us that this devil is limited, man. Okay. So he's reached the bound that the Lord is not gonna let him pass, man. And that's why we see, Esau in scrapes with a lot of things that he wants to do. And the only thing that he's gonna be able to do is the thing that the Lord allowed him to do to fulfill prophecy, man. That's the only moves Esau can make, is the ones that fulfill prophecy, man. But all this other vain ambition that this devil got, he's not going to be able to do it, man. Because he has bounds. Okay, and Esau is starting to hit up against them bounds, okay, that he can't pass, man. So Lord will, this lesson, was edifying. Once again, giving all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessing and salutation to the hopeful. Shalom.